Good morning, students. Last time we were discussing about structure of DNA. So we have completed the structure of DNA. Today we are going to talk about types of DNA. Starting with the types of DNA, let's discuss about the DNA, the different type of DNA that are present in prokaryotic and eukaryotic cell. So we are having two type of DNA, that is linear DNA and circular DNA. Where we are going to find the linear DNA. Linear DNA is present in eukaryotic cells. And why we are saying it as linear DNA? Because two ends are free. The two ends of DNA are completely free, and that is found in eukaryotic cells, in the nucleus of eukaryotic cell. Plus these linear DNA, they are associated with proteins. We saw earlier also about histone proteins. So here histone proteins are present that are helping in DNA packaging, so that this DNA can easily fit inside the nucleus. Plus this linear DNA, we will find many strands of linear DNA. So many strands are present in form of chromosomes. In form of chromosomes. And if we talk about circular DNA is present in prokaryotic cells. Here no proper nucleus is there, so it is present in nucleoid region, and the two ends, they are not free. The ends are joined with each other. No free ends are available. This is how the circular DNA is present in prokaryotic cells. So only one single circular DNA is present, and no histone proteins or no proteins are associated with it. So I can write one circular strand is present and no proteins are associated. This is, and here like this we are going to find a linear DNA with two free ends. This is the difference between the type of DNA we are going to find in prokaryotic cell and eukaryotic cell. Other than this, we are having again different type of DNA strands that are present. See, earlier we talked about the structure of DNA that was given by Watson and Crick, and they told about how many base pairs are present in one helix, what is the difference between the distance that is present between two base pairs. We are having different type of DNA, almost same structure is there as that was told by Watson and Crick, but we are having some of the differences. We are going to find some of the differences in the number of base pairs that are arranged in one helix, plus the distance that is present between them. And because of these differences, we are dividing the DNA into type A, B, C, D and Z DNA. They are almost showing the double helical structure, but they are also showing differences in terms of number of nucleic acids, number of base pairs that are present, distance between the base pairs. So just look at the overview. Watson and Crick, the model that was explained by Watson and Crick that is present in all the living cells is the B type DNA that is generally present. If we talk about their orientation, all are almost right-handed. B is also right-handed, C is also right-handed and D is also right-handed, but there is difference in Z DNA. Z DNA is showing a zigzag pattern. It is zigzag and almost showing a left-handed orientation. Now there is difference in their base pairs also. In DNA A, type A, we are going to find 11 base pairs in one complete helix. In B, we know 10 are present. In C, there are 9. In D there are 8 and in Z DNA we are going to find out 12 base pairs. So this is how difference in base pairs is existing. So most abundant is the type B, but some of the cells like the salivary glands are having some of the salivary glands of some of the organisms are having Z type of DNA, that is showing a zigzag pattern. So this is how another different type of DNAs are present with some minor differences. Then if we talk about the whole DNA that is present in human cells, out of whole DNA, maximum part of the DNA, that is non-coding part. So the complete DNA is having a non-coding region. What this non-coding region means, or you can say non-coding DNA, that means this DNA is not going to code for any of the protein, enzyme, hormone, anything. It is just waste, or you can say it is junk. It is doing nothing. And maximum part of our DNA is non-coding region or non-coding DNA, and most of the non-coding portion is repeated. The sequence is repeated, and that's why it is known as repetitive DNA. The sequences that are present in this non-coding region are highly repetitive. That's why we say it is repetitive DNA. And some portion, only small portion of this DNA is coding region. Having the coding portion means that is going to code, that is going to provide information either for the formation of proteins, it can be for the formation of histones, tRNA, rRNA, means that is the functional part and that is the non-functional part. This is the non-functional region which is in majority, and only small part of the DNA is behaving as functional region, that is going to code for something. So a huge amount of non-coding region is present. This is all the non-coding region, and in this non-coding region we are going to find out some of the region that is behaving as coding region. So this whole is a non-coding portion, and this small portion that is lying in between is behaving as a coding portion. Some of the DNA segments, they can change their position. Say here a DNA segment is present, and this DNA segment can move from this place and it will shift to another place. So it will be removed from this region and it is going to move here. This portion, this type of DNA is known as jumping DNA, or you can say jumping genes are there. So they are having the ability to change their position. They are going to jump from one region to another region. This is also another segment of DNA that is found. Now from this coding region, some of the DNA segment is coding for protein. So some are protein coding DNA, which are responsible for the synthesis of various type of proteins in our body, and some of the coding region is not going to code for proteins, but it is coding for tRNA, rRNA and histone. So other than proteins, some of the other segments are also synthesized, or they are coded by different segments of DNA. This is how types of DNA are present. So we have told a lot about DNA. Now we know DNA is the genetic material that is having all the information, and this information is inherited from one generation to next generation, and this DNA is also responsible for variations and evolution also. This is what we have talked about DNA yet. Now we are going to talk about an important process, that is DNA replication. Before starting DNA replication, I want to talk something about central dogma. Because central dogma is basically giving us the understanding that how things are happening in a sequence, how the process is taking place. See, what central dogma is saying. Initially, DNA is there inside the cell, and when the cell is going to divide, this DNA has to be equally distributed in each and every daughter cell. So, before distribution, it should copy itself, means double the number, so that it can inherit equal amount of DNA to the next cells. So, the first process during cell division that takes place is DNA replication. DNA is going to replicate for proper inheritance. When DNA replication takes place, DNA has copied. Now, this DNA needs to form RNA. From DNA, RNA is going to be formed, and that process is transcription. Means DNA is not directly involved in the formation of proteins. DNA is going to form its copy. That copy is going to form a RNA, and that RNA will help in the formation of proteins. So DNA here, DNA was there in replication. During transcription, this DNA has formed a mRNA. mRNA means messenger RNA, because it is carrying message from DNA for the formation of proteins. And now this mRNA will be involved in the process of formation of proteins. And the process of formation of proteins is known as translation. So this is what we know, that first DNA replication takes place. From this DNA strand, mRNA strand is going to form. This mRNA will going to code for a protein, and protein will be formed. This is the central dogma which was known, that DNA will change into RNA and RNA will form the protein. But when retroviruses were discovered, retroviruses means the viruses that are having RNA as their genetic material. These are having RNA as their genetic material. What these viruses do, they form DNA from RNA. That means from RNA, DNA is formed. That is completely opposite, because earlier we were known that from DNA RNA is formed, but we were not having any of the evidence that RNA can also form the DNA. This was only known after the discovery of retroviruses. So they are going to form, they are already having RNA, and from this RNA they are going to form the DNA. And this process is called reverse transcriptase, because that is completely a reverse phenomena. So it is reverse transcription, and the enzyme that is involved is reverse transcriptase, and the DNA that is formed from the RNA, that DNA is known as cDNA, complementary DNA. This is how the central dogma is working. So we will study this central dogma in this manner. First, we will talk about DNA replication, how DNA is going to replicate itself. Then we will talk about that how the replicated DNA will form a mRNA, and then we will see from this mRNA how proteins will be formed. So I am taking the first topic, that is replication, how DNA is going to replicate. Most of the things about DNA replication was told by Watson and Crick. Their model was completely explaining the DNA replication. What their model was saying, that the two helix are present like this way. One is running from 5' to 3' direction, and another one is from 3' to 5 prime direction. This was told by Watson and Crick. Now they said that when this DNA replicates itself, then what happens? These two strands open up. They will unwind and they will separate from each other. Means this will be the situation. This is the 5 prime to 3 prime end. This is the 3 prime to 5 prime end. So this is how DNA during the time of replication opens up, unwinds, and with this new strands over here, new strand is going to form. This will be 3 prime to 5 prime end and this will be 5 prime to 3 prime end. That means the new strand that is going to form, this new strand is containing one old, if this DNA duplex is having one old strand and one new strand that is formed. This is how DNA replication is taken place. And this method of DNA replication is known as semi-conservative method. Semi-conservative means half portion is conserved, still the same parental type, and only half has been newly synthesized. That's why semi-conservative method. This semi-conservative method was explained by two scientists with the help of a simple experiment, and these two scientists were Michelson and Stahl. We will see how their experiment proved that DNA replication is a semi-conservative method. First, see when DNA replication takes place. DNA replication, we have already discussed in cell cycle that DNA replication takes place at S phase. When division of cells takes place, so in this division of cells during the S phase, DNA replication takes place. And the amount of DNA will be doubled after replication. Now, let's see the experiment that was done by Michelson and Stahl. In 1958, what they did, they tried to explain the semi-conservative method of replication. And to explain this semi-conservative method of replication, they took a bacteria and they grow this bacteria in a medium that was containing heavy nitrogen isotope N15. So for various generations, for multiple generations, they grow this bacteria they grow this bacteria in a medium, and this medium was containing heavy nitrogen isotope that was N15. And when they recovered this bacteria from the medium, they find out that this bacteria was having DNA that was heavier because of the accumulation of N15 inside the DNA. We know in purines and pyrimidines nitrogen is there. So the nitrogen that was present was N15. So this bacteria was having DNA heavier as compared to the bacteria that were growing in normal medium. Normal medium means that were growing in presence of normal nitrogen, that is N14. This bacteria was having, because here the DNA was containing, inside the DNA N15 was there. So this is how they obtained the bacteria that were having heavy nitrogen. Now what they did, after recovering this bacteria, they grow this bacteria in a normal medium. So initially they were having bacteria that was having N15. Completely N15 was there in their DNA. Now they grow this bacteria in a normal medium that was containing N14 nitrogen, and they observed it for first generation. for first generation, for one generation, they grow it, and after what they observed, that now they were having DNA that was intermediate. This DNA was intermediate between this one, that was the N15, and N14. Why? Because this was the situation. Out of these two strands, this is the N14, the newly formed strand, and this one was the N15, the old strand. Because here what was the situation? Both the strands were N15. Both were heavy strands. So that was full heavy. Here one strand is light and one is heavy. So that is coming in between. This was their observation in first generation. Now again, when they grow this bacteria in normal medium, they got the second generation. And what they found in second generation? In second generation, they found that 50% were having this situation, and 50% were having the normal N14 bacteria. So again, this N15 is there. Here also N15 is there. Now these two strands has also separated. So this is the second strand. Here this is the second strand. And now new strands are going to form. This is the new strand that is going to form. Here also. Here also. So this black one is again N15 that was present over here. Here also N15. The blue one was N14. N14. And because we were growing the bacteria in normal medium, so the new strand that was attached were also N14. So this was what they observed in the second generation. 50% were having the heavy nitrogen and 50% were completely normal, that were having the N14 nitrogen. This is how they explained the semi-conservative method of replication. Because of semi-conservative method of replication, this N15 strand always remained, and the new strands that were forming, these strands were only incorporating the N14. So one old strand always remains there and one new strand will be added on. Now when these strands are going to separate, what will happen? There will be breakdown of hydrogen bonds. If there will be breakdown of hydrogen bonds, only then the separation of two strands will be there. Initially this was the situation. A is binded with T, say C is binded with G. When this strand is going to open up, here A will be present, T will be present, C, G. And the bond that was present between them, the hydrogen bond that was present between them is broken. And because of their blockage, these two strands have separated from each other. Now these strands, they are acting as a template strand. And we know there is specific base pairing. So now the new strands that are formed, we can easily find out the sequence of these new strands, because these new strands, if here A is present, that is going to bind with T. Here C is present, that is going to bind with C. This is also T is going to bind with A and G is going to bind with C. So because we know that specific pairing is taking place between the nitrogenous bases, so we can easily find out the sequence that is present in the new strands that are going to form. This is how the DNA is replicating. Now for the formation of new strands, there will be formation of hydrogen bonding with the nitrogenous bases, and in the cells the nitrogenous bases are present in form of deoxy Say if I am talking about adenine, adenosine monophosphate. All the four nitrogenous bases, they are present in this form. This is deoxyadenosine monophosphate, deoxyguanosine monophosphate, GMP. Same way deoxycytidine monophosphate, and deoxythymine monophosphate, TMP. Thymidine monophosphate. This is how the nitrogenous bases are present in the cell. Now these nitrogenous bases, they are present in inactivated form, and for binding, for incorporation in DNA, they must be converted into active form. And how these are converted in active form? By combining with ATP. These monophosphates are going to combine with ATP. They are going to be involved in the process of phosphorylation. This process is known as phosphorylation, and the enzyme that is going to catalyze this reaction is phosphorylase. And because of this reaction, from this ATP, phosphates are going to combine with this, and they are going to form adenosine triphosphate, guanosine triphosphate, cytosine cytidine triphosphate, and thymidine triphosphate. And these are the activated forms which can now easily be involved in the process of hydrogen bonding, and they will be involved in the formation of new DNA strands. So this is how DNA replication is taking place. Next time we will discuss in detail which different type of enzymes are involved in DNA replication and how the process is taking place.